I would like to start this video off with a sincere apology. Quite a lot of time has gone by since we've had a really blown up engine on the stand. Many of you watch this channel to see levels of carnage you've seen in the past, like the 8-liter Dodge Ram V10 or the Honda J35 V6, which set the bar very high as far as carnage is concerned. Now, I understand not every single person would like to see carnage every single week, but for those of you that crave the malice in the combustion palace, I feel like my videos have fallen short and I've been unable to meet your carnage expectations. In fact, it has been so long that I started to think people began taking care of the vehicles they were driving. They began checking their oil and changing it on time, paying attention to warning lights, watching their temperature gauge. I started to think people began to care about their cars. But I'm here today to tell you that it was just an anomaly, and I just couldn't find any actually blown up engines. And what better engine to end that streak than a Kia? What? You thought it was going to be a Subaru? No, today we're going to tear down the 3.3 liter Lambda II V6 out of a 2017 Kia Sorento with 104,000 miles on it. And it is not only kind of bad, it is really bad. It has a hole right here, and it has a hole right here. There are many different variants of the Lambda V6. This is a Lambda II. I believe it's called the G6DH, and if I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. This version of this engine can be found in the Cadenza, the Sorento, and the Kia Sedona, although variants of this engine can be found across all of the V6 Hyundai or Kia lineup. This puts out 290 horsepower when it has 6 good pistons and connecting rods, which I am positive this one is lacking. The very first question in my head when I see an engine with holes in it is, does it turn over? So let's find out. I think I just fixed it. Yeah, it's just got a little tight spot. I'm sure it's fine. Hold on, let's check for Uncle Rodney. Oh, he's in there. This is going to be fun. This is a core return, which means that a salvage yard sold a good engine and charged the customer a core, which they were refunded once the old one came back. And when I get these cores in, they're usually half taken apart. I try to find the more complete ones. In this case, the intake is kind of installed. The first thing I'd like to do is remove the spark plugs. So, much to my chagrin, while the plugs look terrible, they aren't destroyed. I don't see any smashed electrodes, no bent straps. They don't look good. They are NGKs. I don't know if they're original to this engine or not. I'm sure some of you Kia guys can chime in. But there was quite a lot of water inside the spark plug tube, so some of these are wet. It's not oil, it's just water. This engine was outside and it's been raining here. Now that the plugs are gone, we need to recheck how this engine feels. It doesn't feel great. I feel like, yeah, there's definitely a little tight spot. It's just a little one though, and it makes some weird noises. Let's go backwards, which is what you're not supposed to do.
Uncle Rodney.
The next thing I'd like to do is focus my attention to the fuel system by taking this off and throwing it into the pile that will be parts I don't reuse. And now we'll get the fuel pump off. Next, I'm going to unbolt the front valve cover. I think I got them all. Yeah, it's close enough. Now it's time for old Blue here to shine. We're going to get this cover pried up. Maybe. Maybe not. No, that is not necessary. Maybe it is. Let's find out. I think that's going to stay put. I don't know what I'm doing here. Whatever kind of sealant they use, it's very good. This is proving to be a task. There we are. What does it look like in here? So everything looked fine until it didn't. Chain, guide, all that looks okay. It's a little varnished in here, but not terrible. And then I got to this area right here, and that seems to have a sparkly substance. Could that be the forbidden glitter that we never want to find inside of an engine? That might be the case here. I don't see any other signs of damage here, just that. And now we'll rinse and repeat on the rear valve cover. See if this one is stuck with as much gusto as the last one. I think it is. Just got to crack the seal. Well, I feel like I'm the first person to be in this part of the engine, and I don't see anything terribly wrong. Valve train looks okay. It's not really much to see, it's just cam on bucket. This side may have a little more varnish, and I'm just judging it by the variable cam timing solenoid. That is grody looking. The rest of this looks pretty normal, although the oil that's collected here has a little bit of a gray hue. You don't want to see that. But I don't see any chunks of aluminum, no broken chain guides. This all looks all right. Fortunately for us, this engine likely has an oil filter on it, which is what we're going to inspect next.
Ow! Could have gone without that.
We'll go look at this now. Let's take a look at this filter. And because of its location on the engine, you could call it a high banker because it is a bearing sluice box. And of course, it has done its job and collected all of the bearing material that it could. In every pleat, we have the metal you don't want to find. I don't think we're putting this one back together. And there is the mother load. Look at all of that bearing debris. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the lower intake manifold, which is really difficult because someone already had all the bolts out. It actually is difficult. Will you let go? Maybe if I... All right, what is the secret combination to get this out? Surely it's not pulling the cylinder heads. No. Let's take a peek at these intake ports. Look at all of the buildup. That's a GDI intake port for you, and I know they're not all the same. These are just pretty nasty looking. There's lots of debris in here. I think the previous... Ugh, that's really bad. Previous people pulled the injectors out of it, so this doesn't have injectors in it. Let's go around the other side. Wow. Big yucks. That one's really bad. Now it's time to tickle the timing cover, and we're going to start with the water pump. And there's a hex here. I think I need to take that out next. That sounds good. I think that's all of them. Oh, we're leaking. Look at that water pump. Does it go that? It's an arrow. That's what it is. It's clearly an arrow. Looks really nice. It's an original part. No corrosion. Looks like the gasket was doing its job. This is an excellent condition water pump.
Oops.
Now it's time to zip the harmonic balancer off. Let's get the big guns. If this doesn't do it, it should have. Like a glove. Look at that. Love it when it's not a press fit. Now there's just a few more bolts to take out. That one didn't need to come out. All right, are there any more 12s? Nope. Time for the 10s. Surely there's not many more bolts. Oh, I got these. 2 more up here. Let's just try prying on it just a little. Oh, this has brakes on it. I always forget that this stand has that option. Yeah, definitely got them all. They don't really give you any places to pry. I don't think you're supposed to work on it. There we are. Just pry off the cam gears. It'll be fine. Don't do that on your engine. Don't work on your car the way I work on these. And here's the timing cover. That all looks okay. So the timing system looks pretty decent. I don't see any chunks of plastic missing off any of the rails or guides. I don't see a tensioner that's hyper extended. This all looks pretty good in here. The first thing I'm going to do to peel the timing system off is remove the tensioners. And you just fall right off. Ooh, that one was under a little bit of tension. Gotta be careful. Now these should just... There's one. Set it there. That one's still under tension. Let's get this one unbolted. This is pretty loose. That rail looks decent. Let's get that first chain off. Oh yeah. Nice. This one appears to be under a fair bit of tension still. So let's use glue to break the ice here. Yeah, see, it's fine. I don't need safety tote. Let's unbolt this rail. Yeah, that rail looks decent. What? Just give me the rail. Well, that's nifty. You know what? Oh, I ruined it! I'm just kidding. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with this. I really would like to get this chain off the cam gears, but I don't know if we have... Oh, yeah, we have enough. That's just going to hang out there because it's trapped by the oil pump chain, which will take off once we get this engine upside down and the heads are off. Next, we're going to remove the variable cam timing solenoid. Sparkles. And now we can remove the high pressure fuel pump housing. That has the lifter, the roller lifter for the fuel pump. Looks good. Before we go camming the cram caps off, we need to remove a few things that are going to be in the way, like this bracket. And the dipstick tube. That's not what I wanted to do, but I did it. Now, we can cam the cam craps off. Let's take a look at these cam journals. That one looks okay. Lifter buckets look all right. There's some wear on the coating, and we saw this on the last one of these we did. journals don't look too torn up, but the oil does have a metallic hue to it. There's probably some suspended metal. Let's go look at the cams and caps. So there is some wear on the camshafts. At the journals. The lobes all look good. Caps have a little bit of damage too. Not terrible, considering what the oil filter looked like and the way some of the oil looked like that was in the cylinder head. I'm surprised these are as good as they are. I expected much worse. But they certainly aren't perfect. Before we get the head bolts out, I want to remove the variable cam timing solenoid from the intake side. I'd like to see if this collected any metal. That is if this comes out. We got it. Oh yeah, there's a little bit on this one. I'll show you. The screens on variable cam timing solenoids can be very good at picking up metal that's in the oil. There's a few chunks. Now if you've got an engine that you suspect has metal run in the oil because it's got a bearing that's come apart, you can pull these out, and it's a good way of checking without having to drain the oil or take a whole lot of stuff apart, depending on the engine. Now it is time to crack the head bolts loose. Wow, that's a lot for one head. Are they all going to be like that? One thing I have read on these engines is that sometimes the head bolts loosen over time. I'm not sure how much truth there is to that, but there's definitely a lot of forum posts about that. So let's see if these are all the same tightness. Wowza! Sorry guys. Definitely all of them tight. Did I miss one? No. I could have missed one. Now the head's ruined. I feel like I got that one already. Okay, what's behind head number one? Let's find out. Well, there's the head gasket. I think there was a comment in one of the previous videos that said that they would fire me if I worked for them when I threw a head gasket. Huh. That looked fine, by the way. So this is not right. Oh, I see a lot of problems. That is one of the problems. That's also a problem. We definitely have an engine that's going to fail the scientific test. Speaking of that test, I think it's time for some science. Hey, that one's good. That one's not good. I don't think that one's good, although it seems like it's good. By the way, the reason I couldn't get the dipstick tube out is that the block blocked it. Let's take a peek. Oh, lots of heavy scoring. That's really, really deep. Not as much on that side. Now we can't really get a great indicator on this cylinder, but it's clear that the piston hit the cylinder head very hard. The valves hit. You can see outlines of the valves, especially on the exhaust side, well, and the intake side. And we know that one has a disconnecting rod, but let's go to its neighbor. And its neighbor is deformed. In fact, it looks like it's cracked. That's not good. So we're going to find a whole bunch of fun stuff. The cylinder head honestly doesn't look too bad. The combustion chamber is kind of deformed here where the piston struck it. You can tell it cleaned all the carbon off, but I would bet that these valves are slightly bent. The They usually don't make contact with the piston under force and stay straight. Just one bad combustion chamber. On to the rear cylinder head. We're going to take the exhaust VCT solenoid off. Now what I could do as well is I could unbolt this here and slide it out to check for metal. But I think pulling the intake solenoid is sufficient, which is precisely what we're going to do. If we can get it out. Big if. Will you just... It won't. Oh, I think we're moving. Yeah. That one has a little bit less debris than the last one. Now we'll cam these. Nope, we have to take this bracket off. Uh-oh. So this side looks pretty comparable to the other. Maybe a little less wear to the buckets. I don't see any horrific damage here. The camshafts are maybe a little bit nicer than the other bank. There's still some damage. I don't think this engine ran super long with all that metal in the oil. Most of the damage is on the caps themselves, and I would hardly call them ruined. Although when the piston hits the cylinder head, bends valves, it takes a lot of money to bring those back, and if the heads aren't super valuable, a lot of times they end up in the scrap bin. There is one perimeter bolt to take off before we get to the main head bolts. Now it's time to crack the head bolts loose. See if these are tight. Yes, very much so. That release. It's so violent. Okay, what lies behind head number 2? Well, it's a full set of pistons. I have a sneaking you know what? That's new. It's like a rotary phone. Does it go back? I don't think we've ever done that before. We should do that more often. That looks good. Yeah, we need to do the test. That one's a little concerning. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, so that one's good. Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to happen. So basically, it seems like half of this engine has a problem. The other half is perfectly fine. Let's take a look at the bores. And that one's got some pretty heavy wear. It's not as bad as the other bank. This one we can't really see, but this one, yeah, that's pretty deep. That's pretty bad wear. Let's go look at the cylinder head. The cylinder head, pretty indicative of piston to head contact. Clean this area of the combustion chamber. I wouldn't really trust that those valves are straight either. I think these heads are going to end up in the bin unless for some reason I can prove that those are good. Although since it's GDI and I don't have the injectors, that might be a challenge. The next thing I'd like to do is drain the engine from the oil, because I'm not going to turn this thing upside down since I think there's going to be some kibbles and bits in the pan. Let's see what comes out of here. I can definitely see that there is some oil in the pan. That would have been a mess. Hey, is oil supposed to be gray? We're gonna let this drain for a little bit, and then we'll get in a position so we can pull the lower oil pan. Now I'm gonna take a moment and unbolt the lower oil pan. Let's get all blue here. Let's see what's inside this party platter. Did I get all the bolts? Yep. Well, I expected chunks, and I don't see chunks. I was not expecting this. This looks okay until you actually look at it. And there's lots of silvers and gray, and there's some debris on top of that, but where are my piston nuggets? Where's my carnage? Where did it go? Let's just rotate it over to see what is going on here. Well, we're leaking some oil. Is that it? That's not it. Oh, it's making a humongous mess. That's okay, we've got some pig mat here. Let's get it all the way upside down so we can get a better look. Ooh, something big moved inside. So I think part of the reason we didn't see a bunch of junk in there is that the damage is in the center of the engine, judging by the exit port and the other exit port. But clearly, we can kind of see the crank journal in there. There's definitely going to be some debris in there. The real question is how much made it out of this hole. Here's the oil pump. The screen looks clean and free of debris. There's a little chunk of something in there maybe, but not enough to stop it up or cause a reduction in oil pressure. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this cover off. I'll get this little chain out of the way and get the oil pump off. I think I'm going to have to take that off, or yes, let's take that off before the chain is off. Let's set this back on here. Let's just test this pump a little bit. Oh, that's loud. Okay, it's good. All right, now I need to get this off. What if I just hold the chain here with my hand? What's the worst that could happen? Don't answer that. Ah, that worked perfect. Next, we'll unbolt the oil pump. And let's go take this apart. Now that the pump is off, I can get this other chain, this beautiful, beautiful chain off. Okay, let's take this apart. Oh, what did I do? Well, it's fine. I can fix it. It just goes like that, and this... Oh, wait. Okay. I'm going to spray all this off, wipe it down, and we'll take a look to see its condition. Well, that housing has a little bit of wear, but it's not terrible. And then we get to the vanes. There's some wear, but it's really not that bad. The shaft looks nice. The oil that's coming out of this has a little bit of a sparkly hue to it, but it's not too terrible. And there's some signs that debris ran through there. I know it's got a big spring in there. We're definitely not going to take that out. Now it's time to unbolt the upper oil pan. That one isn't attached to anything. Neither is that one. I'm missing one here. Let's get old blue to see if we can pop this off pretty easily. Let me try it with all the bolts in it. That seems to be not what I want. Oh, that did a thing. Oh, okay. This is going to be bad. I can already tell. Okay, let's see. Oh. Yeah, we have some damage. So, that's connecting rod. I don't know what that is. This windage tray is more of a blowage tray. It's like a scatter shield. That's not bolted to anything anymore. It's just my job just got easier. Wow. It split the block here. The amount of force it takes to break the block at the flange. This is the strongest part. This is much stronger than this area. This is, I mean, maybe it's just the bolts are weak, or maybe it's just the point of impact, but look what it, I mean, that's amazing. And this side was actually sticking out of the upper oil pan. And it broke off one of the bolts here, and that looks like, yeah, there's some loose stuff in there. Never a good thing. And here's the upper pan. That is actually part of the pan. We'll just put that back where it came from. Perfect. That's really amazing. All right, let's unbolt the windage tray and see what the damage is. Stretch that. Can't really get on that. That just cut my glove open. Oh, we're dropping metal parts. So this, I need to modify. I need to do this kind of gently. I think I can get on this one now. This one is still there. I think I fixed it. Let's see what happens. Ah, perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. Wow. Look at that. That's a wall hanger, don't you think? And normally I just throw this thing in the scrap bin, but if somebody wants this, I got enough of these things here. I don't have enough wall space for all of that. So this is what we're looking at here. This part looks okay. So this one is just, that's just, nope, come back here. Nope. Okay, we're going to just hold on to that. And the magnitude of the damage is very apparent now that everything's off. There are lots of impact marks. I'm sure this just blew up at idle. It's one of those Starbucks drive-through failures. There's even some major damage down there. Look at the bottom of that piston. We'll get a much better look at that once we get everything out, but let's get the light. I can't see anything. So here's much better with the light. Look what I found hiding over here. And that is stuck there. Maybe that's the tight spot. Is the crank hitting that? Now that we pretty much have all the debris out of the way, and I'm being sarcastic there, let's see how it turns over. Yeah, as I suspected, that's not going to turn all the way over. Let's get a bigger bar. And just so we're all on the same page, I'm really sure that broken rod cap bolt, yes, that was the problem. Yep, that is the end. This connecting rod making contact with that bolt, which is jammed into the block, which we'll try to retrieve at the end of the video. Let's turn this over enough, and we'll start at the front. I'm going to unbolt these in pairs, and we'll push them out. Nope. Can we get these bearings out? Oh, we need a little assistance here. This is proving to be a little more challenging. I'm going to carefully use the brass punch. Don't want to do any damage to the rod. All right, now, even though I know the center two rods are broken, I'm going to attempt to take, it turns over much worser. I mean, it's smoother now. Oh, well, I can't get that off. There's the broken end of the rod. That works. So now we're going to try to unbolt. Oh, that was making a little noise. We're going to try to unbolt these, although the rod cap bolts are absolutely mutilated. It'll be a lot easier trying when the crank is in the block than when it's on the table. I don't have high hopes for this, just so we're on the same page. Oh, wow. I got on that one. All right, we just have one more. Of course. That one is mutilated pretty badly. Let's see what we can do here. This may not work. I can't believe this isn't working. What if I do this?
Huh?
Oh, we're kind of on there. Yeah, we got it. I got to get it loose still. Yeah. We just got to zip the other one out. We did it, guys. Oh, there is a bearing still there. It is rough. That's really bad. So we can skip. I guess that's number 4. We'll get to the next 2. This still does not turn over great. Let's get to the final 2 cylinders. Now the fact that those didn't make an audible noise means that they weren't really under the tension that they're supposed to be, like this one was. So I bet there's some damage to that rod, that big end of the rod. We won't know until we get it zipped apart. Oh yeah, that's bent. Nope, I guess that bearing's staying there. Oh, that one's not where it's supposed to be. So number 5 looks okay, but when you get to number 6, that is spun. Bad. Uh-oh. That one really fought on its way out. Let's see how it turns over without the rotating assembly totally complete. Oh, that's bad. So it's kind of good, but it's still too stiff. That's not what I meant. Now we're going to start unbolting the main cap so we can get the crankshaft out. Now, I don't know if you can see it from this vantage point, but you see the coloring in that front cap and how much darker this one and this one are. And this rear one is the same color as the first. So these 2 center ones are not happy. Okay, we'll just do the outside ones then. Yeah, those are tight. Now we can zip them out. See if I can't get this main seal plate broke loose. Whew, that one was tough. Now, hopefully the crankshaft will just pop right out. Seems like I was wrong. Nope, there we are. The last thing we need to do is very carefully remove the remnants of the 2 broken rods and pistons. Let's start with the rod bearings. These are the best rod bearings in the engine, and they are bad. It only gets worse from there. You can definitely tell they had some heat in them. They look bad. This is the one that we fought, the broken rod. There. These are in not good condition. You can tell that that one's been distorted. See how it's wider over here? That one is, it's not there. It's gone. It's actually probably in the oil filter. This one, not good either. And this one was spun. This is cylinder 6. You can definitely tell that that one rotated over under force and duress. That is not good. Now for the rods and pistons. Some of the rods, not bad. All of the pistons have damage like that. This did not contain the blast very well. Now we're going to come back to the pistons in a minute. I want to show you all of them. Front 2 aren't too terrible. The broken ones are actually not as bad as you'd think. At least that one's not. The broken rod is bad. We don't have the entire rod. I think some of that is still orbiting the earth. This one looks like a pretty clean break here. There's definite marks from making contact with the cylinder head and the valves. But that's not even where it gets exciting, I don't think. That one doesn't look too bad, but there's some impact marks. The real crazy thing is this piston. So you notice there's half a ring hanging out on my table. And that is part of the oil ring, which is broken, because this piston is cracked. It is cracked through the skirt, through the land of the rings, all the way through the crown onto the top of the piston. I currently think that there's very little holding this piston together. The rings are definitely helping here. The wrist pin is very stiff. You don't like to see that. And that's because something got in the way of this. Look at that impact mark right there. And I bet you that was part of the broken rod from one of the other cylinders, probably cylinder 3. And that got in the way, got pinched between that and the crankshaft, and that's what broke that piston. That's a pretty cool death piece. Again, if you guys want any of this stuff, I didn't anticipate selling anything for reuse from this engine. There's very little, maybe the timing cover that's good, but they do make good desk ornaments. Let's move on to the main bearings. They're all roached, which is exactly why the crankshaft did not turn over that well. That was pretty tough to turn over. Now we'll go on to the crankshaft. Not great. Every journal has damage, especially that one. That one's wiped out. That one is wiped out. And then there's lots of impact marks too. Look at those. This is really rough. One thing I mentioned earlier is the color of the main caps. And yes, I didn't keep the cam caps in order because they're scrap. The heads are junk, so no need to do that. But look at the discoloration on the center too. There's a lot of friction there. Let's go over to the block. So the block is pretty, well, it's destroyed. It's scrap metal. Look at that giant crack from the impact. I think there was more than just one. The oil squirters, deleted. Look at the gash at the bottom of that bore. And this one, this was the broken piston, the cracked one. That's from some piece of debris. And I bet you that that piece is still out there somewhere. It could have also ended up in the splash shield. We don't really know. But as you go around to the other side, there's lots of damage there. But there is one other thing we need to do, and that is remove the very stuck rod cap bolt. That moved from this pair over here. Let's get a screwdriver. We'll fix it. So this was the tight spot that we felt when we turned it over. Hey, success. That wasn't terrible. Look at that bolt. It's crazy amount of damage, but that's from the crankshaft making contact. It's actually probably one of these rod caps right here. Look at that. That's from making contact with that. The bores have quite a bit of wear. And it's not just unique to the cylinders that blew up. It's unique to every cylinder. That doesn't make sense. The other bank, maybe a little bit worse here. Those are really deep. Obviously, this block is junk. That one's the worst. That's the one from the broken piston. And now I'm going to show you what killed this engine. Look at the oil control ring. It is gunked up. It is totally packed with carbon and oil deposits. Not good. So what happens when that happens is that it starts to consume oil. And the more oil it burns, the more coked up it gets. The more coked up it gets, the more oil it burns. And if you have someone that isn't the most, how do I put it? Careful? No. Observant? No. Knowledgeable? No. There's a word that I'm not going to say. But if you're one of those drivers, car operators, that doesn't check your oil and your vehicle is using oil, well, it eventually runs low enough that causes all of this damage. This was starved of oil because it was probably consuming oil. No one checked the oil. It destroyed all the bearings, and it started knocking so bad, and they ignored all of the knocking noises. It didn't just happen like you started up one morning and you came out to your car after it was warmed up and it was blown up. This was one of those, hey, my engine's making noise. Let's see if we can make it another 35 miles. And I don't think they did. I'm sure there was lights on in the dash. It's probably misfiring. And still, they drove on until they needed a new engine. If you find yourself needing one of these engines used and you buy one with 100,000 miles on it, you can expect to pay north of $4,000. Now, that may not sound like a lot if you drive something crazy or fancy or super late model, but this is an 7-8-year-old Kia product. A used engine is $4,000. Now, I don't think that the campaign to replace engines failing left and right applies to the V6. I think that's just a 4-cylinder thing. I could be wrong. Regardless, this was entirely avoidable. Now, modern engines use oil. 25 years ago, if your engine burned a quart of oil every 1,500 miles, they thought something was wrong. You need to re-ring that thing. It needs valve stem seals. It must be smoking out the tailpipe. Something is wrong. But on a modern car, if it burns a quart of oil every 900 miles, it still doesn't fail the oil consumption test. I think some manufacturers say a quart for 700 miles is the bar. That's the 700 miles a quart. Pretty soon you're going to need to top off your oil every single time you get gas, and that's just going to be the norm. That's ridiculous. Regardless, if you own a car, especially one that has a dipstick, there's no excuse for this. Every time you get gas, every other time you get gas, check your oil. I know I sound preachy. I just want to make cars last for people. I want people to get the most out of their cars because cars are expensive and they're not getting cheaper. Now, these engines are in high demand, and that tells me that a lot of these blow up. Do they all blow up because of this? I have no idea. Now, I've seen a ton of these engines with giant holes in the block. I usually don't pick those for teardowns because normally when they're that bad, someone has taken the upper and lower oil pan off and the main caps out trying to get it to turn over so they could get all the torque converter bolts out. And that kind of spoils the video for myself and everyone else. Occasionally, like this is the second one I found that had holes in the block and no one had gotten into, and it's just a luck of the draw. That's all it is. Regardless, I didn't buy this engine to sell parts from, even though most of the engines I part out on this channel or do teardowns on. The goal is to sell parts. But if you'd like to buy any of the parts for your desk, or if you want to buy parts off of anything else I've torn down in the past, or If you want parts out of this running and driving 140,000 mile Escalade rear-wheel drive with an LQ9 that I have to part out because it has a Florida certificate of destruction, or off of that 05 rear-wheel drive LQ9 Escalade with 89,000 miles on it that also runs and drives and I have to part out, you can go to Importapart.com and peruse their inventory. If you don't see these things on there, that means that the video went out before that these things got fully inventoried. If you don't see what you're looking for on the website, you can shoot us an email. I'll leave that in the video description. I really hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.